Hello, everyone. I'm chatting with Krausen T about this latest attack in Bavaria, Germany. The third in a week, as I understand it. Were they all Islamist, or were they?
No, no, they weren't. The shooting in Munich wasn't Islamist, and it was basically one of those high school shootings.
Right. Okay. Okay. So we don't need to worry. We don't need to take that one into account for this.
Well, we can talk about it on the because of the ridiculousness of how people reacted. I mean, the government line on it is basically that violent video games caused this.
Oh, you're joking.
No.
Oh, fucking hell. Jesus Christ.
Okay. But what seems to be the case actually is that the kid who went on the rampage, he's the kid of, I believe, Christian Iranian immigrants.
Right.
And it looks like it was bullied by Arab students in his school, and I think he made a fake Facebook account with the picture of an attractive young girl, and he seemed to have tried to lure the people who bullied him to that McDonald's where it started the rampage.
Really? Christ.
Yeah.
I have no idea. Okay, so let's talk about Ansbach.
Yeah, that was really frustrating when it started off, because the initial report was that it was a farmer who blew himself up whilst playing around with fertilizer. Then the reports came in that...
Do we have any idea where that report came from?
No.
So it's just a random thing that was completely nonsense.
A local Bavarian paper, I remember. So someone linked me to a local Bavarian paper, and it said fertilizer explosion, which doesn't make much sense because it was in the middle of a town, you know?
Well, hey, I'm not one to question how the Germans do things. But yeah, so it turns out it was a, 17-year-old Syrian, was it?
27-year-old Syrian.
Oh, 27, was it?
Yeah.
I thought it was quite a lot younger. The 17-year-old was the axe attack, wasn't it?
No, that's also turning into question, because the 17-year-old axe attacker, first off, he claimed to be Afghan when he claimed asylum here. Mm-hmm. Turns out he's Pakistani, and now there's doubts over his age. So he might be.
Okay. So he might be older, and that's a common thing that's happened throughout the migrant crisis, isn't it? That people have lied about their age because the authorities are less likely to do anything to someone they believe to be a minor.
Absolutely, and you know the Ansbach attack when it was still going on and when the facts were not out. German Twitter was basically, a lot of the salty people were like, I really hope that this is a right-wing attack. And this is something I've noticed both in the Munich shooting and in Würzburg and in Ansbach, that people took to Twitter saying, I really hope this is right-wing. I pray this is right-wing. I hope this is right-wing. In Ansbach, they even started tweeting, why are you spreading panic? This is a gas explosion. You know, this was a gas explosion. And of course, the news hit what it was actually.
Yes, it wasn't. So what happened? What do we know about this Ansbach attack?
Well, about 20 minutes before I got into here with you, the reports came out that this is something that was just recently found, that on his laptop there's ISIS propaganda video and instructions on how to build bombs, and on his mobile phone authorities found a kind of confession video or something, a video in which he swears allegiance to ISIS. Basically, he built a bomb, put it in his backpack, and he tried to blow himself up at a music festival. Ansbach is a small town with around 30,000 inhabitants, and they had a music festival, and he tried apparently to blow himself up there. But security, when he refused to have his backpack checked, turned him down, and he left. And he apparently just walked into the next best pub and blew himself up there.
And no one died, though. There were injuries, but no one died. Is that
well, he died.
I mean, people who weren't the attacker.
4 people are apparently in serious condition.
Right.
According to the reports.
Right. Okay. So he seems to have self-radicalized. Is that the theory at the moment?
Kind of. He was okay. There's a lot of stupid things being said as well. His asylum application was. He came here 2 years ago. Asylum application was rejected. A lot of people say, "Oh, he blew himself up because his application was rejected," which is of course nonsense. Because even if it was or was not rejected, you know, you don't just blow yourself up in the name of Islam.
No. Okay, so he had ISIS propaganda and whatnot on his laptop, and what bomb making instructions. Yeah.
Yes, pretty much making instructions, ISIS propaganda, and that's
Yeah.
something that the police recently revealed.
Is that's similar to the Axe attacker, isn't it? Who had a homemade ISIS flag and had appears to have self-radicalized using the internet.
The thing with the Axe attacker is that was almost comedic when it happened. When the Axe attack happened, people, ISIS immediately claimed it, and the the German version of the Daily Show started the hashtag IS bekennt sich, meaning ISIS claims, to mock the idea that ISIS claimed, that, like, saying things like ISIS claimed Ned Stark's execution, shit like that.
Yeah.
And literally 3 hours after they started getting this hashtag trending, ISIS uploaded a video to their main news network, which is I basically swears his allegiance to ISIS and says he's going to kill all the non-believers. So he made a video before the attack and sent it to ISIS. That's the big difference right now between Würzburg and Ansbach, that the Pakistani actually sent something to ISIS.
Right, but both obviously seem to have been committed to the cause.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, some German left-wing media outlets are writing stuff like, well, the funniest thing was a slip by the police press conference where one of the people said, "We don't know if he committed suicide or if he intended to hurt others, inflict harm upon others," which was the dumbest thing I've heard.
We'll just assume he was trying to hurt other people, because that seems to be the bloody case. Okay, so how's the mood in Germany about
anger, as far as I can see? Because when the attack broke, I remember, because I was up last night and just on, the main German TV news just blatantly refused to cover this for a couple of hours. So when the main news reports, I don't know how you call it, E-News, 9 News, when 9 News was airing on TV, they just covered it in 10 seconds, saying, "Oh, there was an explosion there." Bye. And
see, this is exactly what I expect of the German media these days. After refusing to cover Cologne for as long as possible and various other incidents, it's not collusion, obviously, but it's just, why are they in such support of people who do terrible things like this?
Well, I don't think they're directly in support. Maybe there's something to the fact that they didn't want to get something wrong again, because when the Munich shooting happened, it was chaos, because in the report it was a Paris-style attack, that having a mass attack.
Right, that's fair. That's fair that they were worried about making mistakes. Okay, so the general mood is anger. Is it? I take it that this is not only because there was an attack, but the frequency of them is becoming an issue. Well, what sort of things are people saying?
Well, I'm mainly reading on Twitter on hashtags and stuff like that. This has to stop. I'm reading in comments. This is something completely unreal. I think that this guy is anywhere. This was a guy. I don't think he is even aware that we exist on YouTube. But he tweeted out a article that was recently in the German paper, basically just a German translation of something Laurie Penny wrote, saying, "Okay, why are we posting shit like this whilst we are in actual trouble here?" And I'm sensing, Merkel hasn't yet held a press conference. She's more and more moving into the shadows, not making any public statements about these kinds of things. She probably will have to.
Is she being held accountable for any of this?
Well, the government is basically being held to account because of they initiated this entire thing. But yeah, in the end, it all landed on her table.
Okay, just and I don't know. I mean, what are the rest of the government? What are the rest of the officials saying? Are they just trying to keep their heads down, or what?
Right now, it's de Maizière held. De Maizière is our interior minister. People are saying that my audio quality sucks. I have to.
Yeah, it does a little bit. Occasionally, you'll cut out.
Yeah, because it's raining and my internet sucks when it's raining.
Right.
He held a very cryptic speech, press statement, saying that I understand when people are afraid. I understand that people are afraid, but we shouldn't be, we shouldn't get controlled by our fear and stuff like that.
Sure,
And
you shouldn't.
people are expecting more to happen.
So I think it's reasonable to suggest that there'll probably be more of these attacks. Do they have any plan of action?
Well, the thing is, we have some of the best security forces when it comes to counterterrorism. The content, yeah, we have prevented almost everything that was planned here.
And
So,
how much extra how much has been planned that's been incepted?
it's interesting. Downloaded for a video I'm making. I downloaded a study on prevented terrorist attacks. Let me get it up.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Prevented attacks and terrorist arrest. I think there have been something to up to 12 prevented attacks, and I think this year there were 40 terror arrests.
Yes. And how many of these are from migrants?
I know a couple because there was a plan to have a really big attack in Berlin, like in Paris during November. And it was planned that by a group of Algerians who came through during the migrant crisis using the migrant route. So I'm pretty sure a lot of people can via the migrant route.
Yeah, without doubt. And I mean, how is this increasing tensions with Germans and the migrants themselves?
Well,
because one would assume that it is.
This time it's really different because the attacker is Syrian. The previous ones were Algerians, Moroccans, Pakistanis, Afghans.
Why is it different for the average German?
Because to an extent, I have to say, I also believed into the line that, I would accept war refugees in this country. And we know that the majority of people who came here were not Syrian. And I met a lot of the Syrians who came here, a lot of them desperate. I know one, I often bring him on my hangouts. And some of them were rather desperate. A lot of them do behave very well. A lot of them do see it as a second chance that they shouldn't just throw away. And the fact that this was Syrian is really, it's
shaking people.
It is.
So, I mean, I take it no one's proposing any sort of plans then, or I mean, what the hell could be done about people who are radicalizing themselves through the internet?
You can't really do anything. Let me be honest there. You can't prevent self-radicalization through the internet. And look, Al-Qaeda has been calling for terrorist attacks to be carried out with cars, bulldozers, trucks, blowing up power lines with knives to derail trains for 20 years, and nobody answered these calls. And we now see that they're answering the calls by ISIS because they have a far more effective propaganda machine online. And really the only thing you can do is counter the narrative. But as we both know, we live in a society where people make excuses for the Islamist narrative.
Okay, then since we've come to the regressives, how have they been handling it?
Not very well.
That doesn't surprise me at all. What have they been saying?
When it started off, just tweet after tweet after tweet of, I hope this is right wing, I hope this is right wing, which stopped immediately and went to, oh, why are you complaining? This is just a fertilizer explosion. This is just a fertilizer explosion. And when they realized that it happened in a town, they went, oh, why are you complaining? This is just a gas explosion. It's just a gas explosion. And when it turned out that it was a bomb, when the police confirmed that it was a bomb, it was, oh, I hope this is right wing, I hope this is right wing again. And now they're just silent.
Well, I suppose that's probably the best policy for them if they have nothing to say that is totally, nothing that's not deeply embarrassing if you put it out in public.
I honestly think they're currently writing the blog posts.
Yeah, probably. How can we establish this chap wasn't actually a Muslim?
Yeah, it's during the Würzburg attack. We had, I think they also got a lot of slaps in the faces recently.
Mm-hmm.
Because after the Würzburg attack, we have essentially a social justice warrior political party in Germany, with Greens. Their leader tweeted out quite shortly after the Würzburg attacks that, why did the police kill that man? They didn't need to, could have. She got a massive shitstorm for it. I think you could see that the German mood is kind of changing. Media covered her stupidity. Everyone was mocking her. Even the police, I think it was the official Bavarian Facebook account of the Bavarian police, openly mocked her.
Jesus.
Yeah,
that's actually quite surprising. Okay.
And I think they're getting slapped around. People don't believe the narrative.
Well, I'm glad to hear it. I'd like to have at least more honest conversations, even if they're not very comfortable ones.
Yeah, I haven't. I have to be honest. I've been going through the main regressive papers here. They don't use the word Islam, Muslim, and Islamist, of course, but they say a 27-year-old. Vice Germany said, I think it was the 27-year-old Syrian killed himself and injured others in a bar. That was basically their headline. So they do with words, sneakily try to talk around facts.
Yeah, I mean, that is technically an accurate description, but it kind of leaves out a few important factors, as in why he did it.
But since the Islamist angle was confirmed by the police just about 30 minutes ago, there's no way of denying it.
Yeah.
It's confirmed. You can't talk around it anymore. And yeah, it will be interesting to see how politics will evolve around this in the upcoming year.
What are you expecting?
Well, one immediately consequence is that I read by the mayor of Munich. He said that there will be very strict security measures at this year's Oktoberfest. That might be Japan during the Oktoberfest in that area that is usually held. And I believe, to be honest, I think we still have 2 regional elections coming up. Mm-hmm. And I think we're going to see an increase in right-wing party gains. And I believe it will lead to, during the federal elections, which I believe are in 2017, the ousting of Merkel pretty much. Because if the right wing gains so much, the conservatives are forced into a coalition with the new right, the AfD, Merkel won't stand for that, and there will probably be an internal party revolt against her.
And do you think she'll move to an EU position?
No, she's too old for that, and hated. To be honest.
Okay. Right. And sorry.
Yeah, it boils down to Merkel. That's something that we shouldn't forget, because I remember during the migrant crisis, the internal minister, de Maizière, he pretty much had plans in place to shut down the German border. To keep as many people out as possible and to institute checks. And it was Merkel who overruled his plan. And we know that it mainly boils down to who's responsible for this. So with knowing that, it becomes more and more viable that there might be a conservative revolt against her.
So do you think this is going to just have a sort of seismic shift in the German political landscape?
Not necessarily. Well, I mean... The Greens basically made absolute fools out of themselves in the past few weeks, ever since they became the social justice warrior party in recent years. They might get kicked out of parliament completely if they're not careful.
Do you think that's likely, or?
Do
you think that's likely, or is it just?
It happened almost with the Liberal Democrats during the last election. They were annihilated. They're lucky to basically have 5 MPs or something in parliament. So, yeah, there's a likelihood of that. And to be honest, I'm happy about the fact that we now have 6 political parties. Mm-hmm. And yeah, and I do actually want the Conservatives to revolt against Merkel. I think she's been ruling the country long enough, and her last decision to open the borders to all the migrants was really a catastrophic decision, not just for us here, but for France, for everyone else.
Yeah, I really think it's going to hang over her reputation as history moves forward.
It will. It definitely will.
I really think that. I mean, she'll. I think people will forget how well thought of she was in the end. I really do.
Yeah, she was very well respected.
She was. And she was very smart. She was a very astute statesman.
Well, you can't deny that. I mean,
yeah.
in physics, that's not nothing.
But now, I mean,
it was all just a gamble. That's the horrible thing about it, because it was public perception was, you know, the popular thing amongst the public was to open and to let in refugees, and he gambled. So, yeah, I'm going to open the borders. Maybe some of these left wingers who want refugees here and migrants here will vote for my party, but they didn't.
If they're a conservative party, of course they're not going to.
Exactly.
And not only that, look at the problems that this has caused.
And it has caused quite the discontent within her own party. I'm pretty sure that there's a lot of people within the CDU who just want to be rid of her right now.
She does seem like a liability at this point. Which, again, if you just think, like, 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's tragic. It's what she will be remembered for, and she's going to leave this mess essentially for others to fix. Finding a solution to this mess will be extremely tough.
Is there any talk of repatriation or anything like that?
It's interesting that you should mention revealed that the German army instructions of the minister.
You cut out a bit there. Can you say again?
It's interesting that you should mention that, because it was recently revealed that the German army, under command of the under direction, I should say, of the Minister of Defense, is training Syrians.
Oh, really? That's interesting. What, to help them go back and fight ISIS?
In logistics, it seems, military logistics. And I don't know what the intention. Well, the official statement is, so when they're home, they can be a benefit to their country. Don't know what they intend to do. Army logistics is organizing regiments, organizing supply lines and stuff like that.
Yeah,
that was something that's lacking.
And I'm not even against this. I was bullshitting in a stream a while ago and just been like, look, if I were a Syrian refugee and ISIS had forced me and my family out of my home, I'd want to retake my home. I wouldn't want to just be like, well, I've been forced to another country, I'm never going home again. If I was a genuine refugee, I'd want to go back. And so it strikes me that the Syrians, they're going to have to fight for it at some point, aren't they?
It's them to return, that is, if they want to return.
Well, yeah.
And if you talk to Syrians here, a lot of them do actually want to go home.
Well, that's the impression I've got from watching interviews and things like that. A lot of them aren't happy they've been dispossessed, and so, are they not thrilled for the opportunity to be able to, given to them by the German government to go back, or any potential opportunity or anything like that?
Well, the Syrian war would have to end first. That is pretty much.
It's not going to end while ISIS exists, is it?
And the main problem with the economic cost of this. The estimates that say that it will cost the German taxpayer a third of the Greek national debt.
Jesus, really?
Yeah. Well, long term we could afford it, but it's going to bite the ordinary citizen. It's going to bite the working class. We're going to more to social benefits, to the benefits program, to the healthcare program, etc. And some states are already really complaining to the federal government, we don't have the money to cope with this. You put us in a lot of trouble here. And
interesting because
at the point,
go on.
Yeah,
no, go on. Sorry.
Yeah, at the point where it's going to bite the middle class, there's probably going more of a voice of finding this.
Sorry, say that again. You cut out again.
It's going to bite the middle class, and once that happens, there's going to be more anger, of course, and more political will resulting out of that to find a solution.
It's interesting you mentioned the price of it. I remember when Denmark received some immigrants, they decided to take any valuables off them in excess of €1,000. Anything beyond that, they took off them. And I remember seeing SJWs complaining about this. I was like, who the hell do you think's paying for this? You know, it is the taxpayer that is paying for all of this. And you know, do you not think that these people, and many of them aren't refugees, many of them are migrants, should they not shoulder some of the burden of that? But obviously, it's too late to do that in Germany or anything like that. But I tell you, I know I'm sounding a lot more right wing than I normally would on this issue, but I am so tired of hearing about these attacks and very little being done on it. You know, there comes to a point where you've got to be like, okay, well, something has to be done, right? Or not, as Kraut's internet's gone and I'm just the one here. So, chat, what do you think? Anschluss?
Sorry for that, my mic dropped.
That's all right.
Yeah, you said you were sick of this. And,
something has to be done. I mean, is Germany planning on just enduring perpetual terrorist attacks, or?
I think that it's more dangerous in France, to be honest.
No, is it? Have they? Well, I mean, it obviously is dangerous in France. I don't know about relative terms. What makes you say that?
What makes me say that was the nature of the Nice attack. It
was so well planned.
It wasn't well planned. That is the thing about it. That
not the Nice. Sorry, I'm thinking the Paris attacks. See, there are so many.
Well, yeah, you had 9 terrorist attacks in France since January 2015. And out of these 9, only 2 were well planned and carried out by terror commanders, so to speak, by people who had arms training, even training abroad and stuff like that. Yeah. The remaining 7 were just carried out by people who randomly decided had no training in anything. Just randomly decided to carry it out of their own means. And that is really terrifying. It means that the self-segregated banlieues of France, where all the Muslims are tugged together, are now essentially enemy territories, almost, produce people en masse who murder people in wider society. And that's terrifying. The situation in France, in my opinion, is a lot worse than it is in Germany. Right. Because at least here, they're still, gathered together in refugee homes most of the time.
Yeah.
A lot of them, let's be honest, came here for benefits, for social benefits, especially if you're Pakistani or Moroccan, or to be a thief, or to be a thug, a criminal, a street crime.
Yeah, although it was an adventure for many of them, I imagine. Go over there, get some money, and it'll be interesting. Something to do.
Yeah.
Especially if you're an unemployed young man in Algeria or something.
I guess the one thing that I believe is going to be happening in Europe within the next 5 years is that you're going to see a militarization of European society. Because in video I called it Fast 2.0. That's currently the situation that France is pretty much in. It's a hostile community that wants to kill everyone. And how did Northern Ireland solve the situation? They solved it with a peace treaty in the end, where both parties agreed to democratic principles. You can't do that here because the people who are violent towards us demand the abolition of separation of church and state. They demand the theocracy structure. Yeah, you can't negotiate with these people.
No, they're not a state. That's the thing. There's no central government of them. There's no one who speaks for them. There's no one who's responsible for what they do.
So the only solution we have, to be honest, as long as we continue the narrative, that there's nothing wrong with Islam, and as long as we self-censor and are prevented from taking on the ideas that are causing this in the first place, I think the only solution available to us is the Israeli solution, which is to militarize our societies, to, patrolling streets. And I guess that is already starting to happen in France, where they mobilize 10,000 troops, reservists, to patrol French cities. Yeah, we can't do the Russian thing, which is tanks and flatten the place. We're going to see an increased militarization of European society. That's what I'm going to predict.
You see, I'm not very happy to hear that, and that's what I've been worried about as well. There are many reasons I'm not a big fan of this solution. And I mean, it's not really a solution. It's kind of a temporary, and it's potentially going to prevent many attacks, yeah, but it's not a solution to why the attacks are happening. And you're still going to get attacks that slip through, and people are still going to die. So I'm not really a big fan of just militarizing. Not only that, I'm not a big fan of giving governments increased power.
Yes,
I'd rather give them less power, but that's not a feasible option at the moment. So it's, you know, there are many confluences that I don't like coming together in this one crisis.
Yeah, but the only way to prevent it is to smash the narrative that Islam is a race.
Yeah, that personally, whenever I hear someone saying that, I just laugh at them. For me, that's the most ridiculous thing.
It's the prevailing narrative now, however.
It is, and it's very, very annoying. I really don't like hearing sort of white middle class liberals all over my Facebook feed accusing people of being racist because they don't like Islam. So it's cringy.
Frustrating. It's going to take a lot more with these attacks to smash it. It's a horrible thing to say, but it's probably going to happen anyway.
Sorry, say again.
I think it will take more attacks to convince the people who use that narrative.
How many more, though? I mean, how many more can they really see from someone who is... I mean, I suppose the problem is that they've got the disconnect in their minds that ISIS is not a part of Islam. And I don't think you're
going to change their minds.
No, I don't necessarily either. But
it's the middle class. It's going after several more attacks. The middle class is just going to start to think, "What the fuck?" You know, they're not going to be interested in continuing this.
Yeah, they're going to want to bow out of the discussion altogether. What was I say? Yeah, I've noticed a sort of subtle shift in the way that the media has been dealing with this sort of thing, and not just the media, but the authorities as well. I mean, for example, I think it was about a month ago that Tommy Robinson, the ex-EDL leader, went over to France, and the authorities here tried to prevent him from going over to France. And he went over with an English flag that had "fuck ISIS" written on it, and they were obviously complaining about his Islamophobia. Now this, I found that honestly really amusing, because what they're saying is, well, then ISIS is a reflection of Islam. And that's the admission from them that ISIS, it does have something to do with Islam. And so now we need to start talking about Islam.
There's something funny about it, it's something I was talking about yesterday during a live stream with Nick Oroff, Dr. Random McCann, Lib Lunacy, and some others. Okay. We talked about terrorism in the past and right now. You might remember that 10 years ago, 20 years ago, whenever Al-Qaeda and these organizations made an attack on the West, they released a statement saying, this is for Afghanistan, this is for Iraq, this is for... Yeah. Did you notice that right now, whenever an Islamic terrorist attack happens, it's no longer these organizations who say this, it's the regressives within our society. They're the ones who are saying, this is Afghanistan, this is Iraq.
Sorry, you cut out again there. What was it? What was the last sentence you said?
Did you notice how when the terrorist attack happens, it is progressives who say this is for Afghanistan and this is for Iraq?
Yeah, these days the terrorists appear to be just pledging allegiance to ISIS, and I find this very interesting as well, because I'm wondering for how many of them ISIS has just become a symbol. You know, I mean, I doubt very much that many of these people actually have any real connection to ISIS. I'm honestly finding myself, I mean, like, you know, the axe attacker in, wow, what city was the axe attacker in again?
Würzburg.
He appears to have no contact with anyone, does he? You know, he's downloaded literature, and that's about it. Yeah. And so I'm wondering, I mean, like, and with the Orlando shooter, he is a non-religious, or he doesn't appear to be a religious gay Muslim. You would think that, I mean, he would be, I would have thought, very low on the list of people that one would expect a terrorist attack to come from.
I think it's something to do with the organizational structure, because you remember Al-Qaeda was always arguing, we have to build the caliphate. We have to get the West out to build a caliphate. ISIS is a caliphate.
Well, they claim it anyway.
Yeah, but it's probably in a lot of Muslim minds, the notion sounds rather romantic, probably, and
Well,
it's something. Yeah,
that's what I was going to sort of segue into with that. It seems that it's much more an ideal than a practical reality for most of these attackers. You know, I pledge my allegiance to ISIS. Well, go on. Who do you speak to in ISIS? No one. You know, what have you ever done? Well, I downloaded, a leaflet or some literature or whatever. You know, it seems to be, it just seems to be an ideal, and unlike,
it's decentralized.
yeah, an abstract concept rather than necessarily any kind of real organization.
And this decentralization was probably a genius move by ISIS.
Yeah.
Anyone can just be ISIS right now. All they have to do is claim it.
And this is why ISIS is claiming everything, because it's entirely beneficial for them because it just enhances their reputation and prestige.
And the thing is, even if you take out ISIS in the Middle East, there's a very strong possibility that this will just continue because the narrative is out there now.
Yeah. And I'm wondering, that was what I was going to go on to next, actually. Even if we were to destroy ISIS, these ideas are still out there, and there are, I think, probably still people who are going to adhere to them either way. So
there is no way of ending this because the idea is now no longer dependent on an organization.
Yeah.
The idea is just out there for everyone to claim, for everyone to fester, for everyone to spread. And we're not attacking the ideas. You know, even when we constantly say ISIS, most people talk about organization. We should talking about the idea, which is the Islamic idea, and we're not confronting that.
Yeah, and that's what really disturbs me. I mean, I saw the German authorities were going to, we're going to have Islamic education mandatory in schools to help try and de-radicalize people. So, maybe you should have like Christopher Hitchens mandatory in schools to de-radicalize people.
Yeah, it's German Muslim immigration has a kind of a different story it has in France or in Britain because most of the Muslims here are still Turks.
Right.
And honestly, I prefer Turks over Arabs. I prefer Turks over Pakistanis.
And why is that?
Well, most of the Turkish people here, the kind of ones that control, are not Islamists. They're just nationalists, right-wing nationalists.
So I'd take that over an Islamist any day.
Yeah. And I'm also seeing that there might be probably a conflict between the Arab arrivals and the Turks, because the one thing I really that has to be said about the Turks is they really hate Arabs, which is probably the reason why they don't take the Islamist Arab ideology on that much, because Islam, as it was spread in the Islamic world, especially in the Arab world, is very Arab supremacist.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's a reason that they don't translate Allah to God in English translations of the Quran, and it's got to be in Arabic. Why? None of these other words are in Arabic. Oh, it's cultural supremacy. So, but yeah. So okay. So, are you not worried that might change with the? I suppose I don't know how else to describe it other than the Islamization of Turkey.
This might be. The thing about the Turks in Germany is that it is split half-half between Erdogan supporters and people who support the opposition, the secular opposition. I dated a Turkish girl once, and I remember going to her place and had a picture of Stalin from the living room wall, and that they were communists and shit like that. You will find some weird Turks.
Okay, I can believe it.
Yeah, you will find Turks that are very left-wing as well. You will find Turks that are Islamists, but not the kind of Islamist that would blow himself up, but just wants to have a democratically established caliphate.
Well, I appreciate their optimism.
Well, the actress in Game of Thrones who played Tyrion Lannister's lover.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she's a German Turk. So
really.
Yeah, when you go to German Turks, it's a split thing. You will find a lot of thugs, but you will also find a lot of successful people. You will find people who are very critical of Islam. You will find extremely secular people. It's with the Turks. I honestly think that the side effect of the Islamization in Turkey that Turkish intellectuals will probably seek asylum in Germany now. That's what I believe.
Right, okay, that's interesting. And I wouldn't be surprised, given all these purges and the, I suppose instability is the best way to put it in Turkey. I would not be surprised to find many Turks wanting to leave. I mean, if I were in Turkey, I would want to leave. So I really wouldn't begrudge any Turk if they did want to leave. So I assume that it's. I mean, I heard that there were German Turkish supporters on the streets, cheering about Erdogan's successful.
It was worse than that. Worse than that.
Oh, really? Was it?
It's something that I really hate is the fact that that Turkish political parties have party offices in Germany. And we actually saw Erdogan supporters storming, looting, and setting fire to opposition party headquarters in Germany. Jesus. And you ask yourself when you watch these things, what country do you actually fucking live in?
Yeah.
Where
are the nationalists,
Yeah,
See, the thing that worries me about Islamism is the same sort of thing that worries me about the sort of Pan-Africanism. When it becomes irrelevant about the sort of culture you've grown up in, and instead becomes more relevant about an identity, sort of an international identity. I think these movements are generally quite dangerous and liable to cause a lot of trouble further down the road.
Yeah, that's the thing that went with the Turks. It's not as much of an international movement. It's really very Turkish. It's Turkish nationalism. It's all about Turkish culture. They really emphasize the Turkish thing, at least the Turks that are the problem here.
Right, okay.
And that's something that the Islamists don't like in the Salafists, etc., because the Salafism is Arab supremacist ideology. And, well, it doesn't really get along well with Turkish identity. And, yeah, I guess... Yeah, the thing about Islamic immigration, the Turks came to Germany during the 60s and 70s, and we had more jobs than people, and the German government decided we're going to import a few 100,000 Turks, Spaniards, and Italians. And because they believed that they would only stay here temporarily, 4 or 5 years, they built these concrete ghettos that were not really in the center, just a ghetto. And that's where they put them. And that was the beginning of them, because the government essentially built the ghettos for these people. And of course, they didn't go back home. I mean, the Spaniards went home, but most of the Turks didn't go home, and a lot of the Italians also didn't go home. So we had the Italians, however, de-ghettoed themselves, mixed in with the rest of society. Whilst, we still have some, more Italian kind of places, where people still preserve some kind of Italian culture, especially in North Rhine-Westphalia. But the Turks, for most of the time, stay ghettoed. And only through enormous pressure, that some of them might start to get out of these ghettos themselves and mix in with wider society.
I never understand why they want to be, basically stuck in these ghettos. I mean, you would think anything to get out of them, or at least I would.
I don't think they do. I actually believe that at least 50% of the Turkish population is genuinely, when you're the son of an immigrant in Germany, at the age of 18, you have to decide what citizenship you want.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, a lot of them chose German, decided to stay here. And that process involves actively rejecting Turkish citizenship.
And I imagine that's something that a lot of them won't do.
Well, if you do that, you kind of have to. If you reject Turkish citizenship, it's kind of at least with these people, it's a commitment that you will stay here and that you will become part of this society.
Mm.
I mean, I'm more optimistic with the Turks than I would be with Pakistanis or Arabs.
Yeah, I mean, at least there's a long history of them being in Germany, and
that there is a history of Turks trying to be West. Yeah. There's a history of the Turks trying to be a Western secular democracy.
And at least they do have the sort of, there is a secular tradition in Turkey, whereas in most of these other places there isn't a secular tradition, and that bothers me as well.
not just that. I hate to kind of talk. How do I put this? It's something this weird phrase. The Turks look down on other Islamic countries and all other Islamic peoples. They look down on the Arabs. They see them as incompetent, lazy. You know, the Turks see themselves as the best, brightest thing in the Islamic world.
Fair enough. I can see why they'd think that.
And there is a kind of attitude within Turkish society to stand above the rest, to be the best in the Islamic world.
I think starting by imposing an Islamic republic isn't the way forward.
No, that won't be. But in terms of academia, for example, you will find more Turkish professors than Arab professors. You will find more highly educated Turks. Yeah, more optimistic when it comes to the Turks.
Okay, that's interesting.
I mean, the coup is obviously a big step backwards, and I think Turkey itself is moving into a Islamist dictatorship right now, which is very unfortunate. But concerning the Turks in Germany, I believe they will become part of society over the long term, assimilate themselves, even, you know, throw away these segments of Turkish nationalism.
Yeah, I think eventually it's bound to happen.
Yeah. But right now, my main concern really is Pakistani and Arab mass immigration. Yeah, the simple thing about the Arabs and Pakistanis when they come to Europe is they don't become part of society.
Yeah,
they just blatantly refuse.
Yeah, we're aware of this in Britain.
When I look at the problems that it has caused in France itself over the past 30 years, and we only just started having Arab immigration, and it's already causing troubles.
Yeah, I mean, I do think a lot of Germany's problems are being caused by, and I know this sounds like a strange thing to be concerned with, but I think the overt weakness of the German political class is something that needs to be taken into account here.
The German Guild.
Yeah, but not just the German Guild. The fact that the government with like Cologne, you know, the police report was nothing happened. I mean,
well, you notice the other cover? Didn't you notice the other?
Say again?
Didn't you notice that there was a second cover up?
Second what? Sorry.
Did you not notice that there was a second cover up?
Oh, which? No. What? There was another one.
Yeah, the Cologne incident, the New Year's Eve incidents nationwide were a lot worse than initially reported.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I did know about that.
And the German government kind of forced the police who were investigators writing their reports on this to keep the word rape out of the reports.
Of course they were.
Yeah. So I'll tell you one thing. When the Würzburg attacker happened, this is something that really just boggled my mind at first, because the Bavarian interior minister, he just held a press conference just a few hours after the attack happened, and he just bluntly dished out all the facts. You know, no confusion, no nothing. He just immediately said, yes, Afghan, Pakistani, migrant, connections, did stuff like that. He just bluntly threw out facts. Now, this is a very thing, maybe just telling the federal government to go fuck itself, but it might be setting a new tone, and that new tone might be starting out of there.
Well, let's hope so. And I love how this is just, yes, giving them the facts is a controversial thing to do.
It wasn't controversial, but it was. The thing is, I praise the guy on social media.
You know what I'm saying? He's going to come under a lot of pressure.
The fact that he didn't clear it up, tried to clear anything up, just blatantly threw out the facts.
Yeah.
That this is the unusual thing is very worrying.
That's what I mean. It's I find it very disturbing that literally you say it's of note that the guy just came out and told the truth.
Yeah.
I mean, that shouldn't be noteworthy, should it? That should be the norm, obviously.
Yeah, I think we will be seeing upheaval in German politics, which will be started out mainly by the Bavarians. I think they're going to challenge the CDU leadership and might say, "Hey, look, we're doing much more better, and so that we are consequences of all of this.
Mhm.
And I think you will see a lot of change in German politics over a couple of years.
How far do you think it's going to go, though? Because I mean, I think probably everyone watching has seen plenty of the German self-loathing propaganda.
The Bavarian, you know that there's a split in the Conservative Party in Germany. We call it
I only know because you told me.
There's CDU, CSU. Now, this has been existent since 1949, because when the Conservative Party formed in Germany, you know, Bavaria has a history of always going its own way, always being the main enemy of a centralized Germany. It's kind of our Texas in a certain way.
I know.
It's the oldest German Christian kingdom. It has existed since, I think, 900 AD or something like that. And it has a history of just trying to, you know, yeah. And because of that, a lot of the rest of Germany sees it as a bad kind of thing. And it has always tried, ever since the Second Republic was formed, you know, it has always tried to bring a chancellor to Berlin, to make a Bavarian the chancellor of Germany. And the last time they tried was under Franz Josef Strauss, who was this guy. He held this speech saying it was a bit, how to put it, out of place back then, when he said, a country that has had our economic success doesn't need to apologize to anyone, be it Washington, London, Paris, or Tel Aviv. And he said that back in the 70s, which was, of course, a lot more controversial than it would be now.
Yeah, I imagine.
And that's the kind of mindset.
I mean, you know, I mean, he was a bit ahead of his time, maybe, but certainly now, I really am tired of hearing Germans just bring up World War II.
Yeah, if you want that, if such a political push will happen, it will come out of Bavaria, because the Bavarian governor, he started a conflict with the Czech Republic when he talked about how unfair it was that Germans were driven out of the Czech Republic during the Second World War and stuff like that. It's all very controversial, of course, in our country. But if there is going to be a push to end German guilt, come out of Bavaria, and you will have to hope Bavaria become.
Okay. So, is there anything else that you'd like to go over on this topic? Because honestly, for me, it's just again, you know, there's very little to say, because it's not that, you know, none of the information is new, and so none of the sort of conclusions that we're drawing seem to be need to be reevaluated, as far as I can see.
Well, I'm right now kind of following the story myself, trying to gather information about the assailant, about the suicide one. Who he was, his process to radicalization, if he had friends, if he was part of any scene, because Bavaria is not famous for its Islamism.
It's becoming it.
Yeah, we never, the Islamist capitals of Germany were in North Rhine-Westphalia, in Wuppertal and in Bonn, but not really in Bavaria. And the fact that it is happening in Bavaria so massively is really, really worrying, because it isn't known as an Islamist hotspot.
And I take it there are no theories yet as to why this is happening there.
No. Well, there's just the leftist theory that we shouldn't deny asylum applications because those cause suicide bombings, but that's just
that's
not even
ridiculous.
Yeah.
Okay, then. Well, I guess we'll leave it there. Thanks so much for coming on this little impromptu stream to educate us from a Bavarian perspective.
Apologies for my mic quality, because it's raining, and whenever it's raining, my internet is just shit.
Oh, that's okay. We'll blame it on the migrants.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, thanks so much for coming on and telling us about what's going on where you are. Because the thing is, I always prefer to get someone. It's much better to have like the on the ground information rather than something that you may have got through an American news source or something like that. Someone who is obviously far from what's going on and has their own narratives that they want to push.
I guess we'll speak again in a few weeks when the next bomb goes, maybe even days.
Yeah, and I was going to say, if the way things are going, it'll be in the next couple of days. But
Probably.
Anyway, I do hope you stay safe, and thank you again.
Yeah, thank you for having me.